Right, let's make a start. Hi everyone. I'm Xavier Mirabelli-Montan, and today I'm going to be talking about site building within a team. Before that, I'm just going to talk a little bit about myself. As you may have noticed, I am American and relocated to Brighton in 2012, so I've been here for about 2.5 years. Just because I'm American doesn't mean I'm pro-guns. That's a question that a lot of people ask me, but I want to get that one out of the way. I've worked with Miggle for the past 1.5 years or so, and have over 6 years experience with Drupal. 2.5 of that has been inside an agency. You can find me online. Twitter is Xavier Mirabelli-Montan, or you can visit my website, which is whiteskyweb.com. So what's wrong with teamwork? There's a few problems that we'll go over. First of which is that projects can overrun time and budget. Working with a team means that work is easily overwritten. There's a potential for lots of database swapping, so moving databases between team members. Everyone has a different approach on how they do things, and sometimes you have to work with other people, such as freelancers, or maybe supporting another internal development team. So how do we fix these problems? There's one easy solution, and that's to work alone. But that's not really feasible or teamwork. And if that were the case, then this presentation wouldn't be happening right now. So there are kind of 4 main areas where we can make our lives a bit easier working within a team. That's planning, development, deployment, and support. And I'm going to kind of go over those 4 things in a bit further detail in regards to Drupal 7. So let's start out with planning. A big thing that's really key to having a good team and working well together is that you document all internal processes. And this can be anything between how you're going to take on a project, how you're going to tackle it, and kind of what ways you're going to approach this project. Once you do that, then you need to define a project leader. So someone that's going to take this project on board and can be the go-to person. And in the initial phase of planning, you should compartmentalize all of your projects all into a series of components, which might be theming or a certain bit of development. Maybe your project includes translations, or maybe it has a fancy jQuery slider or something like that. So define it into a series of different components and how you're going to approach those components. Then have a list of contrib modules for each component, what it is that you're going to use, and kind of have those installed from the get-go. Figure out the areas where you're going to need some custom code, and create a plan of how you're going to tackle that custom code. Once you've got those components, then and your kind of contrib modules and custom code, then divide each component. It doesn't have to necessarily be done before you start the project, but as you're kind of going, tackle each component at a time, and then divide that into a series of tasks that are no longer than 4 hours each. Because if it's longer than 4 hours, then it probably means that that task is too vague, or that some reason break it down a bit further. And use that 4 hours kind of as a guideline. Some tasks might be slightly longer than that. Never start a task until you're completely clear about what that task is. So for either a project manager or that project lead, that's going to be clear from the client. And then if you're a developer kind of working under that project lead, make sure that that is clearly defined by the project lead. The next phase is development. First off, I'm just going to talk about kind of how we do development at Magle. And that's, to start off, each developer does it locally using MAMP, WAMP, LAMP, whatever it is that they've got in their system, or Vagrant. We're currently in the process of moving over to Vagrant, but we found that with a lot of, we're on Macs, we use MAMP. A lot of times with MAMP, there was lots of configurations that we would have to kind of manually share across between each other, and it ended up being quite a headache in some situations because one developer would run into a certain issue that no one else had, and it would be down to a situation with their local instance. So by using Vagrant, we've got one centralized kind of server instance that we use across the rest of our team. Next thing is to use version control. We use Git. I'm going to talk a bit more about branching very shortly here, but make sure that you've got kind of a defined system between your team of how you branch and merge within your version control. Make sure that everything's code-driven, so that way there's no kind of manually entering in changes into the Drupal CMS itself. It's all done via code. And if you can't do it, then that's something that you should train your client on how to enter in. To kind of make sure that this is code-driven, we use features. But there's some issues with features and views, which I'll also talk about shortly on here. Use Drush for syncing databases from your live site and between multiple environments. It's also great for just kind of plugging in, putting caches and stuff. It's a lot easier than going in the administration. And then it's very key, if you create a new process or have a certain way of doing development within your team, that you document that very thoroughly. For us at Magle, we've decided to use display suite rather than panels, and there's a certain way that we use it, so it's key in your team to make sure whatever you're using that you document it thoroughly. Finally, following common coding standards, whether that be with Drupal coding standards or kind of generic coding standards for a third-party library. So branching. At Magle, we're just kind of implementing a new branching system, and this is can be found online here. It's by Vincent Creason, and it's called the Successful Branching Model. You can find what he talks about. But some of the key things are that you have a develop branch, and any changes that you make are done on your local machine, aside from the development branch that you, once you're finished with that, then you merge that into the develop branch. Within that develop branch, that's kind of, I'll talk about deployment further on, but that's the branch that we're going to be using for our deployments. Once we're satisfied that our code is good and working, you then push that to master. So yeah, a branch for each task. When you're working on it as a developer, make sure that you clearly kind of branch for each task. That way you can start the task, stop halfway through, and not have to kind of merge your changes back into the development branch. As I said earlier, merge the development into master when it's ready to be deployed. The nice thing about separating a develop and master branch is that means that if a Drupal update comes out and you want to apply that quickly, you can apply that to the master branch without it kind of affecting your current feature updates and any kind of things that you're working on the site. So yeah, features. We can now export pretty much everything into Git, which is really nice. Unfortunately, Git doesn't handle serialized data very well. And that is in views, rules, and some strong arm variables. If you've got more than one person working on a specific feature that is using one of those modules, and they create a change, someone else is working on views, for example, this is a common one, it's very easy for those changes to have conflicts within Git. So I recommend that you kind of separate out any views or rules to one developer at a time, just for use basically. Nicely though, in Drupal 8, there is the configuration API, which makes me happy. I haven't looked into it in much depth, but it's looking very promising and kind of mitigating a lot of the issues that we have currently with features. The third step is deployment processes, and making sure that you have kind of a consistent setup of environments for each site that you might be managing. We've got 3 environments that we use. This is in addition to our local development environment. So we've got WIP, which is work in progress, stage, and live. Once we configure, all of these development environment branches are configured with common naming standards, so we know that no matter what project we're working on, we know where to go to get each of these, environments. So we use project.wip.example.com. Example is our kind of internal URL for testing stuff, and then project is the name of the project. Same for stage, and the live URL. Or once the site has gone live, it's example.com, because that's the site. So it's key when you're doing deployment that developers don't log into the server, because if it's set up properly, there shouldn't be, aside from tweaking kind of PHP and stuff, there shouldn't actually be any transferring of files or databases. The next step is to actually, once we've got these environments created, to build on top of these environments. So we use Jenkins, and we make sure that with each build, it's a restorable backup that's created beforehand, so that way if something does go wrong, we can easily revert back to a snapshot of the website. The WIP, the work in progress, builds on each commit to the development branch, so that way before it actually gets to stage and live, we're certain as much as we can be that whatever changes we've deployed have actually done what we want them to do and haven't broken everything. And you shouldn't actually deploy it to stage or live until you're satisfied, and you tag it and then actually merge that into the master branch. If you went to Steve's talk in here earlier, he talks about it in more depth, but we're using Thing. Really nice thing about Thing is it latches on to Jenkins very simply, and it gives us results for tests, any tests that we kind of want to run, whether it be just testing that the website is still up, or something more in depth like behavioral tests and whatnot. And it displays that with a really nice result within Jenkins. Next thing is support. So how do you, once you've deployed all of this, how do you support a client? Or if you're, there might be a situation where you're actually supporting an internal development team, either from the beginning of the project or a project that you've just brought on board. The first thing is to create a how-to document once you've created a project and finished it on how to use the system, and send that off to a client. So document and try and be as transparent and kind of liberal as possible with what's included in that document, so that way the client knows how to use the system, and they can kind of be on board with it, the project as much as you are, and has to make changes to the menus and stuff like that. So that way you can actually get the clients to upload their content and be responsible for that. Make sure that any updates that you make are deployed in code, which is quite important, because if you don't, then that leads back to the whole database swapping, which is one of the big problems that we've got. Update hooks are your friend when you're deploying changes in code, because you can easily make a change that you might want to a database just by the update hook, and it happens right there. Any database changes should be left to the client, so any content that's changed or menu items are changed, those should be done not with you as a developer. Big thing is if you're working with an external team, whether it be a freelancer or a series of freelancers, or maybe you've built out a platform for your client, and they've got an internal team of developers and they're maintaining it. It's really important that you treat them as if they're part of your team, and they're an internal developer, with how you share your processes, and kind of work with them together rather than holding back information. Because if you share processes, then it's a lot less overhead for you. Any new kind of work that you might have come in where there's already a project, the project's already been launched and you're just supporting that project, it's important that you try as much as you can to get the client to work with your processes and how you do things. Because if you don't do it the way that you've kind of defined within an internal team, it makes it really unsustainable and hard for anyone to just jump on the project, because there's lots of extra briefing that has to go on beforehand with anyone. And generally speaking, the processes that you've come up with are processes to mitigate risk. And so I think it's part of your responsibility as a provider to your client to share and not exposing them to risk as much as possible. So just to recap, working with people can cause lots of issues. It's really important in the planning stages to make sure that everyone's on the same page, and if you're not on the same page and you're working within a team, to make sure that you say that. And when you're developing, to develop sustainably, to make sure that if for some reason you had to move to a different platform, it would be simple to get a website back online because of how you develop, and you can do that just from your code base. Make sure that you deploy in a repeatable, recoverable way. That was pretty self-explanatory. And finally, support clients and external teams transparently. Any questions, comments? Maybe some of you do things differently. Let's get the discussion going. Yeah.
Hi. I make a mistake, but I'm not sure how you get code from GitHub to the environment.
That's through Jenkins. So we've got kind of two processes. We've got our build script for a work in progress site, something that we're working on. That is done by using the development branch. Every time that a commit is made onto the development branch, Jenkins will build it automatically. Whereas stage and live, once you're certain that everything's working on the work in progress, you then merge into your master branch, tag it, and then deploy to stage and live.
Through Jenkins.
Through Jenkins as well. But that one's kind of done as a more manual process. And one thing I forgot to mention actually is that deployment, if it's going to stage or live, should only be done by the project leader. And that's kind of one of their responsibilities.
Can I have a follow-up question?
Yep.
How do you create the environments?
How do you mean?
I mean,
we've got a series.
Set up,
you're probably the better one to answer that.
Yeah, so that it's a manual process at the moment, and it actually varies depending on the client. So some of our clients obviously have things like Acquia, where there's no need to do anything. But yeah, because at the moment there really isn't a standard process. We have some people on certain hosts and some people on different hosts. It's just a manual task really. We've got it well documented, and ultimately I'd like it to be something where it was automated using Ansible or Puppet or something like that, but it's not something which we've kind of evolved to yet.
Thanks.
Yep.
How much do you use email as a collaboration tool, if at all?
Very rarely. We generally, when we're documenting stuff, we document it using Google Docs. We kind of have a common format that we all know how to get to this area on Google Docs, and it's titled in a specific way, so we can kind of go to that. For kind of small questions, we generally just use Skype, where we're all in the same office physically, so we can just tap someone's shoulder and make them put off their headphones and talk about it.
It's a legal question, but I think it's a dreadful collaboration tool.
Yeah. When I'm corresponding with clients, I always tend to use things in email, but in terms of within our team, we generally just use Skype. Actually, another good tool that's just come out, Slack. Yeah, it's really good.
Struggle to get everyone to actually take that up there.
Yeah.
Have you tried, I was speaking to someone recently, they suggested creating an image, sort of dev image, so someone just creates that and then they just spin out everyone else, and it's like this fire up the image, and you've got that environment set on that machine straight away. Have you tried that or looked at that?
That's kind of what we're doing by moving to Vagrant, is we've got a repository that has kind of everything that we need out of the box kind of there and ready, and then we can go make a change in code, commit that to GitHub, and then it builds.
But with Vagrant, if you've got, my understanding as well, it's obviously really happening, if you've got, say, a version of the patch installed for something else you've been working on, you'd have to hide that config or PHP image change for a particular project. You'd have to shift that around if you're working between multiple projects on a day.
Yeah, that's the Vagrant that we're using is just for new projects.
The kind of idea is that you have a Vagrant box for each project.
Right.
So so as opposed to where you might have MAMP that you use for all your projects, like you have just a box that you fire up just for that code base.
Yeah, because we found a lot of times we were running into issues with MAMP where we come on with a new project, or it might be that someone else starts working on a different project, there was an issue with, one that comes to mind actually is, I think it was with the display suite or the user both, where there was an issue with the max input bar setting in PHP, and some people had it installed correctly with Mac, but then others didn't, so they try and load up the site and get a whole bunch of PHP errors, and then it took lots of time trying to remember where, backtrack and figure out, remember where we were, and how we fixed that originally. So by using Vagrant, we're hoping that it kind of helps get rid of that, because we're all on the same kind of image, I guess.
Another question.
Yeah.
I like what you said about splitting tasks down into 4-hour chunks. Good approach, I'll try that. What if you've got training PHP developers for 4 hours a week, and one's about 4 hours and not 4 hours? Do you how do you manage your task allocation to different levels?
Well, like 4 hours is just kind of an estimate. It's just so that way you're making sure to actually break down tasks. Because there's been times where I've had tasks that have lasted 2 days, and because of that, it's actually not been broken down enough, and I may have actually kind of gone on more work than I needed to because I didn't think about it in the initial phase. But in terms of estimation, we make sure that everyone estimates their tasks individually. So a trainee developer might say that task will actually take a full day, at which point I guess we can kind of discuss and see if there's a way that they can break that down even further, or even ask the questions why is it going to take you 8 hours rather than 4. So if they're confused on something, highlight that. Yeah.
How many themers are you normally in one team?
Ooh, okay, so we've got myself. I do some theming, like I do both front end and back end really. We've got Ian, who's a themer, and then Gemma, who's a themer as well. So we've got kind of 2.5, and then we all do bits and pieces around, but those 2 are the kind of main front end developers. And then we've got 6 other developers as well, and some freelancers here and there.
Do you use sort of full code review tool?
We've just put that in place with kind of introducing our thing, build scripts. So there's the ability to add loads of different steps to the build script. So we've got loads of testing, behavioral unit, simple tests, as well as there's the option to add I think it's the coder module that will then do code reviews, as well as CSS-lint and JS-lint, kind of pinpoint where those areas might be. Because the way the thing works, will actually figure out those errors, and then display it on the build logging page. We've also got it set up so that if there is an issue with your code, you commit it, deploy it, or it deploys automatically to WIP. Those tests will be run, and then if it hits an error, it will then send an email to the developer that was working on it. Yep.
Do you guys use agile methodologies like Scrum?
We've just got a project manager in. He started about 2 months ago now, so we're kind of he's kind of taking care of the project management side of things, and we're just starting to implement some agile approaches and be a bit more reliable about how we do things.
How do you incorporate designers and their work into your kind of workflow? Are they there? Is the work done up front and then you get it and you implement it?
Yeah, so we are strictly a development agency.
Yeah.
And obviously we do theming, but that's kind of as far as we go in terms of front end stuff. So we'll get a design from a designer, and then
So they've
theme
already
that.
done completely before you do any work.
In an ideal world, yes.
But also, sorry, I work at the same firm. It also depends what you're calling design. Because often the designers are supplying branding, outlines for specific pages, and so on. But they're not by any means covering all the pages. So there, I would say there's a certain amount of design work that does actually happen within the company.
Yeah, because a lot of times too with designers is they'll give you a PSD and it won't actually have any kind of interactivity built in. So I'd like to have a kind of more defined approach on how we handle interactivity, but we kind of just do it as it comes. Kind of give it our best guess.
Yeah, it also depends on the project itself. I mean, sometimes stuff comes to us and stakeholders are already there, different agencies are already doing different things. So being a development-specific agency and not really doing any design ourselves means that we kind of have to take things as they come sometimes. So yeah, I mean, maybe one day we might be a kind of full-service agency, and I think a full-service agency has more kind of control over that sort of thing. But
Yep.
The vagrant setup you use, is that a custom one you've written for your audience? Not a leading question, that's a genuine bona fide.
we're actually using Vlad.
Oh,
I wish I knew someone who was talking about that.
Yes.
Anyone else have any questions or comments? No? Well, thank you guys. And yeah, follow me on Twitter. Here's my website.
Hmm?